No,
You've long arms.
longish arms.
Long-ish. Sure. Long enough.
I was walking down for the pitch competition, walking down the hill with Emily, and she was like, "You walk so fast. You have long legs." I was like, "Thank you." I never hear that. Thank you, Emily.
Oh, it's funny. Was Emily height impaired?
Yes, Emily is shorter than me. That
Okay.
is a fact.
Makes sense.
But what I want to talk about today, Queen, is the power of not only networking, but I feel like we're in a black renaissance right now. And you know, the Harlem Renaissance is like my favorite time in history.
Mhm.
But I feel like right now, like probably 2019, 2018 through today, we're in this extreme period of one entrepreneurship for the black community where it's cool to be an entrepreneur, it's cool to have your own podcast, it's cool to have your own clothing line, and we're seeing a lot of creativity.
Mhm.
And I want to have a deep conversation about that with a guest.
Let's do it.
With the guest, can we do that?
We can do that.
Man, today we got a dope guest for y'all, Monique Marshall from the Black to Business podcast, doing amazing stuff. Y'all got to learn a little bit more about how to create a podcast, the power of black entrepreneurship. And of course, we're going to always ask the question, should every black family have a business? And I'm interested to know what her answer is. Queen, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Are you sure you're ready?
Yes.
Okay, without further ado, let's get into the episode. Over 50% of black Americans are unmarried, and only 2% of black families in America have a net worth over $1 million.
We are on our journey to not only join that 2%, but grow that 2%.
Facts. I'm Devon Truvel, creator of Black Wall Street, the board game, with my beautiful co-host.
I'm Sinclair, aka the Health Nerd. You can go to our website at them4show.com, our Instagram at them4show, and our YouTube channel at Melanated Married Millionaires in the Making.
And welcome to the M4 Show. All right, so I met Miss Monique, not in person yet, not yet, but I met her digitally because I was looking for this dope podcast out there, and I came across her website. And Sinclair, what was the first book me and you read together? Don't think about it. The first book me and you ever read
at
together.
Davis?
Yeah,
Uh,
you're
was it
overthinking.
Think and Grow Rich?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Think and Grow Rich.
Think
yeah.
and Grow Rich, a
Black
Black
Choice.
Choice, right? Originally written by Napoleon Hill, re-edited by Dennis Kimbrough. And I was looking, I was like, there's no way she interviewed Dennis Kimbrough on her podcast. There's what? And then I literally clicked the listen to the episode. Obviously, it was a dope episode. I was like, I need to get connected. So this is gonna be a really good podcast, y'all. I'm gonna try my hardest not to completely nerd out over just podcasting and black economics for sure. But y'all, we got Monique Marshall coming to the stage. Let's welcome her in. What is going on? Hey,
Thank you both. Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Of course, we're excited to have you. It's gonna be a really good discussion. Again, if I start nerding out too much, I mean the queen will pull me out, but you can definitely feel free to pull me out as well. All right. But you are on the East Coast. Are you still in Brooklyn?
Yes, I'm in Brooklyn.
Okay. How's Brooklyn treating you? How's the weather out there? Talk to us.
The weather is very bipolar lately. Some days it might be a warm 50, it might be a cold 50. So we just take what we can get because I'm a Southern girl living in the city. So we take what we can get with Brooklyn weather, but it's a hit or miss.
Yeah. What's up, Queen?
So what is a warm 50?
With the sun out.
So the other day we had a cold 50 and I had my long trench, like my long coat. So then I walk outside. More recently, we had a warmer 50. And literally, I'm like, okay, let me put on the same coat. And so I go outside and I had to turn around because it was warm, like it was hot. I had to put
Mm,
on a lighter jacket. So if you ever follow this page on Instagram, it's called like Your NYC, but they always talk about like how bipolar the weather is. So it's
mhm.
crazy.
Listen, at California, we had maybe a week of rain, and then it went right back to sunny, and it was beautiful. It
See?
was
Yeah, and
beautiful.
then it did go like cold for a little bit,
Mhm.
but we are
Mm,
back to like spring weather basically at this point.
Oh yeah.
yeah.
The other day I was prepared for the cold. I had my jacket on. I had to take it off
I
because
got
I was
jacket.
like, it's hot out here.
Man, but
Yeah,
what
y'all
else
are
is hot? Oh, go ahead. What's that, Monique?
no, I was like, y'all are blessed with the weather.
We are. We are. We pay for it, but
Mhm.
we're blessed for sure. Another thing that is blessed is the Black to Business podcast. Congratulations on the moves that y'all are making over there. Can you
Thank
talk
you.
to us about when you started it, right? What year did you get started? And what was that catalyst? What made you be like, you know what? I'm gonna start a podcast.
Right. So I actually started Black to Business podcast in 2016 before it was like really a thing.
Mhm.
And I'm trying to think what really made me start. I really wanted to, initially, I started with a blog. So I was just going around New York interviewing entrepreneurs, and we would do like some video, then mostly written. And then I thought, okay, this is a lot. I'm not really like loving to write. So I was like, okay, what is another way that I can, disseminate the information that I'm trying to get out and also interview people that are not from New York or not in New York. So I thought about video, but then I'm a little shy and I was like, I'm definitely not getting on video. So what else is there? Then I came across, I don't even know how I came across it, but it was like this one lady, she was doing podcasting and she was talking about podcasting, and she was like she loved it because all she needed was her voice. And I thought, okay, this is perfect. So I started like looking into researching with podcasting, and I just followed the steps that she had. And then as you all know, podcasting is a lot of work, and you see sometimes you don't see that immediate, a lot of times you don't see that
Yeah.
immediate return on the investment. So I stopped in 2016. I had like 2 interviews. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to try it again because I had people reaching out like, oh, I want to be on a podcast. And I'm like, okay, let's see
Hmm.
if I can come back with it. So I tried it again in 2017, did it for a while, stopped. And then in 2018, we had a long run, like a couple of months, and I was doing it every other month, but not really consistent. And so I thought, okay, I really want to get this information out here about Black entrepreneurship and really want to educate people. So if I'm going to come back, I want it to be consistent. And consistent means, like, for me, it meant if you're going to come out, you're going to do it every week. And so I
Mm.
brought it back in 2021, February. And was it 2021? 2021 or 2020?
All
But
three of those years are blurs, right? 20,
Yeah,
twenty
right, it's
nineteen,
so
2020,
blurry.
2021. It's just
it's one
Yeah,
long
so
year.
I brought it back and I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this every week and every week since we've been consistent. And that's when I
Nice.
started to see like the growth of
yeah.
the podcast. So I started in 2016, but more consistent the last 2 years.
Nice. And do you find yourself feeling more comfortable being on video or audio now that you have the podcast?
I am more so we only have a audio segment of the podcast, but I am thinking about the video. I am a little more comfortable.
Mhm.
So I do like that, of course, with the audio, I can take my little mic anywhere and it's just
Right.
more convenient. But it has definitely boosted the confidence when it's like, okay, we could do this on video if that was the decision.
Oh yeah. And you know I gotta ask, right? Obviously Dennis Kimbrough was a
Mhm.
dope guest. But what
Yes.
are right, just dreaming. But what are the top 3 guests you would say you've had so far on your podcast? And excluding Devon Truvel, obviously, because
Right.
I don't want
That
to
was
make
like
you feel
number one.
uncomfortable. Yes. But yeah, the top 3 guests and why? Like why those guests?
Okay, yeah. So I had the one I had to like write which one it was. But of course my top was Dr. Dennis Kimbrough because similar to you all, that was one of the first books that I read when I started like just learning about my people, but also like entrepreneurship and just wealth
Mm,
building in the community. And so that was one of the first books that I read as well. And also just to have him on the show, like literally I was just silent most of the conversation because it was almost like he was giving game to the community, but also to me. And it's that level of respect. Like I really admire and respect the work that he's done and who he is as a person. So that was, of course, my favorite podcast interview. And we reached out and I was like a little surprised they said, yeah, it was like, oh my God, we made it. So
for real. Yes.
yeah, so that was like amazing accomplishment for us. And then another one that recently stood out to me was it was Why You Don't Need to Do a Million Things to Make $1 Million with Dr. Avis Jones D. Weaver.
Mm,
And one of the things I loved about that conversation is the realness of knowing your worth, like not only as an entrepreneur, but as a Black entrepreneur. Like for so long, we work for free.
right.
And, we don't know, some of the times we think about the prices that we charge. We are really worth more than oftentimes what we charge. And for her to say, like, really honing in on what you do and do it really well, that's something that I really stress to the Black to Business audience. Like, we don't need to be doing all of these things. Like, do something, pick your thing, and just become an expert at it. So
Mm,
her really driving that home was really one of my favorite conversations. And I actually had someone text me, a couple of people messaged me about that conversation. So that was one that recently like really stood out to me. And another one I would say is kind of two, because I can't remember which one was first. So I had Miss Tanya Rapley on the podcast, and then I also had Marquel Turner. So Tanya is from My Fab Finance, and Marquel, he was doing the new stereotype. But I say those are my top episodes because they were my first two episodes of the podcast.
mm.
And when I tell you all, it was bare bones. I was in the public library with my mic. I still have the same mic on the
Mhm.
top of some books.
Yep.
And we were recording like this. And just to see, like, Tanya was on the cover of Black Enterprise at that time. And just to see, like, we were really out here, like, thugging it out with the podcast. Every
Yeah.
time I see her, she's like, "You still recording on those books?" But, that was like, we started from the bottom.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Congrats on the growth, right? Some people are
Thank
just
you.
afraid to even start. So congrats
Yeah.
on getting it however you had to get it out the mud,
Yeah.
library on top of books, all the way to where y'all today. Congrats.
Thank you. Thank you.
So when you said like, okay, I want to do a podcast, how did
Mhm.
you decide like what are you actually going to talk about? Like when
Mm,
you're starting from scratch, like you're starting with these interviews, like how did you come up with like what is going to be the structure of the conversation? How
Mhm.
are we going to, actually make sure that this is a fruitful episode and
yeah.
information getting to the public?
Hmm.
Yeah, good. That's a great question because I think about, being from the South. I often tell the story of when I grew up, like only entrepreneurs I saw were the barbershop owner and then the local beautician. So for me, I was really a lot of times looking at interviews from other people like on TV. So I was always interested in like watching other people's stories. How did they get to where they are today? And also entrepreneurship. But one of the things I thought about when I started the Black to Business podcast is for me, it's a big part of it is that storytelling, but it's also like, I want to know how did you accomplish what you accomplished? Like, I want to be educated at the same time. So for
Mm,
me, I thought, we can read their stories a lot of places, but how do you actually show someone step by step how to do this thing? And so when I did the Black to Business podcast, I was very clear on the fact that I wanted it to be educational. And, Devon, you were on the podcast and it's like we spent a couple of minutes talking about your story, but much of it is in your lane. And I wanted that because it markets that we're educating the audience, but it also flexes the muscle of the person who is on the podcast. So it's a two-way street. And I'm really intentional about that because it promotes that business owner. Like
mm,
we really know what we're talking about. And we don't just get anybody on the podcast.
mm,
So that's, doing business with integrity and also like putting the effort into finding quality people. So I was intentional about that from the beginning. And then also prepping our guests in terms of, sending them questions so they can show up as their best, like you all do, like sending us questions
mm.
so that we can show up as our best. So,
Yep. So First of all, is it weird being on someone else's podcast as a podcast host?
You
You know,
know, the
that's,
funny thing is, I have not. I've really not done interviews like that. I think I can count on one hand how many interviews I've done like on
mm,
someone else's show. So yeah, it's
hmm
kind
it's a little weird. Yeah, I kind of feel the same way when I go on other folks' podcasts. Like
of, yeah.
this is a little interesting, but um, can you talk about a little bit the steps on how to start a successful podcast, right? If
Mhm.
there's someone out there listening and our audience is melanated married millionaires in the making, right? So these are couples out there who are trying to start a brand together, invest in real estate together, or possibly start a family podcast.
Mhm.
So to that family, what would be some of the early steps that you would give them to launch?
Yeah, I would definitely say with anything, just start. Well, not just, but first you want to start with a plan. And in that plan, you want to include like what is your show going to be about, but also what is going to separate your show from other shows. So,
Mm,
what's your style? Is it going to be interview style? Is it just going to be one person on the show? If it's going to be a mixture, how often? And then also devising a plan like how often are you going to launch your episode? So, what can you commit in terms of producing a podcast, writing your scripts, conducting these interviews, and then how often can you actually get that out to your audience? So maybe for you, it might be two every other week, or it might be once a month. And I would say start small and then go bigger. So maybe starting with every other week. And then as you get more batching done, meaning pre recorded,
mm,
then you can go to weekly. But I would say it's better to have like that in alignment first and then go like every week. So first, devise the plan, what your show is going to be about, what's going to separate it. And then as far as like the tools needed, it's really simple. Like I have my same mic that I've had since the beginning. I got it for like $60 off
mm.
of Best Buy because I love me some Best Buy. And and just a platform or a software where you can record, whether it be on your computer with, if you have a mic, not a mic, but a MacBook, you can use GarageBand, or I know there's Audacity, I think.
Yep.
And then there are other programs that are on the web. So, starting there. But I would say more so than anything, creating a plan, and then how consistent are you going to be with cranking out those episodes, and then starting really simple with the tech. Like I said, I started with on a stack of books and I still have the same mic. And then now I'm in a studio, which I do use sometimes, but I had to get here and I still was able to get awards and things like that. Well, recognition with my mic, with my USB.
Yeah. Hold on, you
So
can't just do a light flex about these awards. Let's go through some of
not
these
awards,
awards. Hold on now. Hold on now.
not awards yet, not
Yeah.
awards, but
Oh, okay.
well, last year we were recognized by Apple Music for their Black History Month segment, Secure the
Let's
Bag.
go.
So that was, thank you. That was a great thing to be in. Like our numbers, it helped us.
Hmm.
And then also Wondery Media, we were recognized as well for Black History Month. And then 2190 for Black Business Month, they recognized the
Mm.
podcast. And more recently, we were reached out to by the Webby team for one of their categories. We didn't get it, but they see us.
Right. You out here.
Yeah.
Nice.
Right. You out here.
Congrats.
Thank
Come on.
you. Yeah.
And you said you're in a studio now. When did
Mhm.
the investment of the studio happen, and what have you been able to do now that you have that secured space? I think as entrepreneurs, and this is maybe my own, I want a
Mhm.
studio
Mhm.
so bad, Monique. I want a studio. But yeah, can you talk to us about like the decision to invest in the podcast to a level where okay, I'm going to go ahead and get this space so that we can produce some high quality content?
Well, the interesting thing about this is this opportunity came to me. So it's a partnership. It is actually
Okay.
a partnership. So that's, building relationships and, people seeing what you're doing. Because honestly, I was just working out of my house in my room on my
Yeah.
laptop, which I still do at the same time. But this is the opportunity that came to me from, this organization. And they've given us kind of like the space, like sponsor the space for us.
Nice.
So that's how it worked for me. But I think it's like when consistency, like continuously working, people seeing that you're working. And then we also, in exchange from that, we also help build their community for those who do want to start their own podcast. So it allows me to educate their community on, starting a podcast. So it's a mutually beneficial relationship, which is a partnership.
Nice. And then I know you're also building a community for Black to Business, right? You don't just offer the podcast, but there's a community of services that you're offering. You have newsletters.
Yeah.
Thank you for the emails. I do appreciate the emails with the resources. Much love. So can you talk a little bit about the other kind of tentacles or things that are involved in Black to Business in addition to the podcast?
Yes. So we also, in addition to the podcast, we have a directory which consists of service-based businesses. So those who provide professional services like accounting, marketing, all of those good things, because it's like people will come to us and say, do you know someone that does this? And I think it's because there's that level of trust, because we do produce, quality episodes. So they're like, we trust your opinion and that you're going to send us to the right people. So what we've done is vetted people that we can vouch for and say, okay, this is who we're offering to our community. And so we have a directory. And then in addition to that, we're really big on sending out newsletters, because we believe that is where essentially a lot of business owners are checking their email, but it's also something that we own. We own our email list versus, social media is good, but we really think email lists are important. And so those are the other things that we offer. In addition to that, we offer our community a toolkit, which consists of free and affordable resources that they can use to grow their businesses. So it's like our recommendations on accounting software, our recommendations on marketing things that you might need in your business, just to how to get started. So you're not just wandering and hunting and pecking on the internet. And then we're all about sharing what has worked for us. So we also share a lot of the tools that we use within the Black to Business on our own website, which is our tools we use page. So those are some of the other offerings that we have. And then we're also going to be launching, just helping people actually start to form their businesses. So that'll be something that'll come out later.
Dope. If you're listening, go to www.blacktobusiness.com. Check out the toolkit and make sure you sign up for the newsletter, because these emails are valuable, y'all.
So you already have quite a bit going on, quite a bit to offer as Black to Business. What do you see on the horizon in like 3 to 5 years? What else is coming? What you got in your notebook? Jot down. I feel like every entrepreneur, we got like that notebook or that list on our phone of like all the things we want to do in the future. So like, what are some of those things on your list?
So it is certainly something that I'm really passionate about, educating and guiding, because that's something that I wish I would have had more of in my entrepreneurial journey. So just a big thing I really am excited about is introducing like these formation services, like actually helping people form their business, whether it be an LLC, whether it be a corporation, but then also educating them on the next step. What happens after you form your business? So that's something that's like on the horizon. And then we have been trying to get back into our events, because we do used to do events, but we, of course, the pandemic and all of that stuff. So bringing back events and in-person experiences, and then also eventually like creating a community. That's what I see for now. But I'm really, really focused on doing well what we have, and then, of course, introducing the formation services.
And just a quick clarifying question. When you say formation, you mean like the legal entities of the business, or like the ideas?
The legal entities of the businesses.
Okay. So that is very needed. I feel like that's where a lot of people kind of get hung up. It's like, okay, I got the idea. Now what?
Right.
Now what?
Exactly. So that's really, really important.
Oh, yeah. So we're about to take a quick commercial break. When we get back, what I want to ask you is, who are some of your dream guests, right? If you were really just shooting for the stars and you can have anybody on your podcast to educate your listeners on how they got where they are, what would that list be? Top 2, top 3? We'll do it right after this commercial break. Look, we're going to get right back into the amazing podcast. But if you didn't know, in 2017, we created Black Wall Street, the board game, because we thought More families needed to know about the history of Tulsa Black Wall Street. More families needed to know about the legacy of Black excellence left behind of Tulsa Black Wall Street, that we can own a Madam C.J. Walker Beauty Salon. We can have a Booker T. Washington High School. We can have an Uncle Steve's Barbecue. We can have a Renaissance man like Simon Berry, who had his own taxi service and bus service that got bought out by the city of Tulsa. We have brilliance in our DNA. We wanted to make sure that your family can play a game that teaches them about this brilliance. So we have Black Wall Street, the board game right here. We had the first edition available in 2017. That got sold out. We're on the second edition right now, or you can get the beautiful masterpiece version of the game as well. It's up to you. Head to playblackwallstreet.com and get yourself Black Wall Street, the board game, to empower you, your family, and generations to come. Playblackwallstreet.com. Let's get back to the episode. Getting right back into it. Dream guest for Black to Business podcast would be.
You have his book right there behind you, Dr.
Claude Anderson?
Yes, that is a dream. Like, that would be my number one.
All right, here you go. Powernomics by Dr. Claude Anderson. This is a really good one. Like, literally, this Think and Grow Rich, a Black choice.
Yeah.
And Built to Last. You read those 3 books for business.
You're good. You are good. That's like the first one I read. Like, those are like Dr. Claude Anderson. That would be a dream guest because of how powerful he is, of course. And then also that was like, I think the first like book I read on, you know, Black power as far as like business and actually how to get a plan. Like, what is a leader? And I think that just his approach in us, you know, taking responsibility for us, I think that that's very inspirational. So I would love to have a conversation with him. So top. Oh yeah,
it's my top. It's gonna happen. Do you know Boyce Watkins?
Yes.
So you know they're really tight, and I feel like Boyce he does a conference every year, the All Black National Convention, that we go to. I think you should go to it next year or this year, and I think Boyce can make that happen.
Okay, yeah, because I know he's on his show a lot too. Yeah,
a lot, right? A lot. Can we not a huge detour, but I do want to talk about cultural empowerment, right? Or the empowerment culture that Dr. Claude Anderson talks about. What do you think it takes for us as a community to shift the culture so that business, wealth, and just what else? Just starting podcasts, like, it becomes the norm, becomes the culture that we look to do?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is, you know, I think about my own story growing up in the South, and I was just having this conversation with my friends here in New York. I think, like, we always hear Black people are not a monolith. It's really true. Like, what my experience is growing up in the South is totally different from someone who is from the city. And it used to frustrate me, but now I understand it even more. And I think the biggest thing I think about is that representation matters. And that when people see you doing and they see Black people, us being successful, but also doing it right and doing it with integrity, it allows them to think, okay, it's possible for me, because that is the only thing I think of that has contributed to the place that I've gotten today. Otherwise, I don't know where I'd be. But I think that we do have to think, regardless of, you know, people saying I'm not responsible for raising anyone else's children. I think when you're in leadership, there is an unspoken responsibility that comes with being in that position. And I think that we don't get to decide, but it is there. And I think that we have to be serious about that responsibility. And so I think that that's one of the things I think about, being there, more representation, and also that confidence in saying, like, okay, if it's not working out as fast, it's going to take time. Like, it has to be patience in this process, and it's going to be worth it. But I think so many times we see people get it so quickly, whether it be success, money, whatever. and we get discouraged because it isn't happening for us that fast. But maybe your journey, you're setting that blueprint. So there isn't a blueprint for you. You are the one creating that. And I
Yeah.
think that we have to be mindful of that and just remember that. But I think that's what it's taking.
I think also we see from the outside that it seemed quick,
Right.
but we don't know the
Yeah,
3,
you
4,
don't
5 years
know.
that it took, right? No, 7 years to build up your podcast. Like people don't
Yeah,
necessarily see that just watching. So
Social media, I think,
social
definitely
media
does
for
not help
sure.
yeah.
because,
It's
no one, people don't usually post the rough days,
Mm-mm.
right? There's
right.
just the highlights. So it just looks like, oh, okay, in March they did this. And then in October they got this big award. And it's
Yes.
like, no, they didn't show all of the, the 6 months leading up to that
Yeah.
where it was a struggle.
It was
And I
a
think
struggle.
it's always a
Exactly.
struggle. And I think
Yeah. And
I think that is a part of that responsibility that you mentioned,
mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Is I think that is starting to change a little bit from like on social media I think we used to see a lot of just polished and everything
Yeah.
was really, really pushy, everything. And I think everything is kind of switching to more of like casual
Mhm.
day to day, like let me just show you what I'm doing.
With my
And
do rag
with my
on.
do-rag on,
Right.
right? To show more of the real. And I think along with that should also come like here are the struggles.
Yeah.
You
So I
hear
think
the
that's
struggles.
something we can also do to help those behind us is like show
Mhm.
the good things, but also show the obstacles. Because I think knowing what some of those obstacles are that folks may face and how to move past them, I think is a very helpful tool for folks. Otherwise, it's kind of like they didn't post about this. How was I supposed to know to
Right.
expect
How
this
dare you.
roadblock, right?
Yeah. That's good.
We don't
Speaking of
give.
which, can we do you mind sharing maybe one struggle early on, whether it's with a podcast or just a business journey period, an early struggle or barrier that you had to overcome, and how did you overcome it?
Let me think. Overcoming a struggle. I think the biggest thing I had to learn, doing Black to business is that the reason I started, it always has been educating and I'm very passionate about entrepreneurship, but it also, a lot of it started with, I was just curious about how did people get success in business. So
Mm-hmm.
initially, I wasn't thinking of it as a business. I was just like, okay, I'm just spreading the word on these stories and how people got this success. So I was essentially running it as a hobby. And when I started to get like real interest, and then I started to think like this is something that I want to take very serious. I started Black to Business with the idea in 2013, but I always tell people it was really operating as a business within the last 3 years. So I think about like all the mistakes, and when it comes to like investing time, when it came to like investing money and not properly planning things, although you have a business, like to business, those were some of the mistakes that I initially made. And it was, I think, more so like treating my business like a hobby versus a
Mm.
business. So it was like, oh no, we serious. So you got to operate and get stuff in order, because if you want to do this full time, like this is what it's going to take. And if you want to have this certain impact, this is what it's going to take. So I always stress like people having a plan, like a solid plan. And that was something I did not initially have in Black to Business.
Look, but you said 10 years. You said you started in
Yeah,
2013.
Wow.
10
exactly.
years.
Yes.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Congrats. And we know I don't know the exact stat, but it was, what was it? 50% of businesses don't make it past year 3.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. It's a lot. Like not past 3. So
Right.
that's what we're trying to do with, what we're doing is because of that, most businesses don't make it to past year 3. It's like
Mm.
get you to that point where you're set up for success to surpass that.
Oh yeah.
Hmm.
Oh yeah. So something that, and this was going back to your responsibility response and
Hmm.
how can we uplift an empowerment culture. We hosted our first pitch competition, right? Helping students. All right, it was really fun. It was a great
Yeah.
vibe. These were middle school students to high school students, and
Hmm.
it was a 12-week program where week 1 they identify a problem in their community, and then by the
Hmm.
end of the program they've built a business around solving that problem, right? So
Oh,
we
I
had
love that.
students identifying homelessness as a problem, mental health for women with anxiety and depression,
Racism.
undocumented students, racism,
Mm.
air pollution, just
Police
like police
brutality.
brutality, Monique. Like they were all over the place solving specific real life problems. So we had that first pitch competition on Friday, really good vibes. And to see them up on stage, confident, confidence is a strong word. They were nervous.
They were pushing
They were
through
there, though.
They
anyways.
pushed
That
through
is
for
what
sure.
that
Yes.
is what was very admirable about it.
Yes, they pushed through.
Yes.
We definitely, I know I talked about it on I think your podcast, Black
Yes.
to Business, shout out, but definitely want to see how you can come and fly out to Cali. Come on, visit
I'm
Cali.
always
Next
down.
pitch competition. It's gonna be in May, it's gonna be in June, weather's gonna be great. We gonna talk about that offline for sure.
I'm always down.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Do you have any tips that we should give our students, right, as they're practicing, as they're kind of developing their entrepreneurship muscles? What are some things that they should really be looking to develop, or books? We talked about 3 books already, but resources or tips that you have for developing entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I would definitely say you all are doing amazing. Like the idea in of itself, like creating a solution around these problems that they see. So I think that is really, really good, because I think that's where you get them in the mind of creating a solution, but also that revenue generating idea.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's so important. And I think that when you are an entrepreneur just starting out, talking to your potential customers, seeing what they want, not just thinking that you know everything that they want, but doing that customer discovery, getting on the phone with people, getting old school with it. And
Yep.
in a way, you're building a relationship with them, because so many people don't do that. So I think that that's really important. And then what else I would say? Planning, making sure that your idea is actually generating revenue. I know we love to help, but it
Yeah.
takes money to make an impact. So
Yeah.
make sure
Even
you have
nonprofits need money.
yes. So make sure you have money. And I think another thing that I really think has been important in my journey is having a mentor. And that could be someone that you have
That's
access
good.
to, or someone that doesn't even know that you exist, but find you like 2 to 3 people who are in the industry that you want to get in, and just study how they're doing it and take what they're doing and make it your own. And I think that people get too many ideas from all over the place when they really need like 2 to 3 people, and that's it. And so I
Yeah.
think having a mentor, whether they know that you exist or don't, is good. And then also knowing the importance of investing in yourself, whether it be time, whether it be money, is important.
That's really good. And that advice, not just for our scholars listening, but our families out there, right? Husbands, wives, kings, queens. Listen, find yourself some digital mentors,
Mm-hmm.
lock in, and find your zone of genius. Love that.
Right.
Love it.
Yes.
Okay. So we do want to give you a little bit of a break. I know we've been asking you questions left and right, some of them completely random. I appreciate you for holding it down. But we're
Okay.
going to go into our Ask Declare segment. So this is your opportunity to go ahead and ask us a question. Oh, we see the dancing. Okay, she ready. Go ahead.
So I think the biggest thing, one is like when you all are building a business, I think a big thing is like delegation. So of course, when you're like 2 partners, like how do you decide, okay, this is what I'm good at, and then I stay in this lane, and this is what you're good at? Like, how did you all like make those roles?
Ooh, great question, Queen.
So some of the tools that we used early on, and then we revisit on a pretty regular or annual basis, I should say, are one. Love languages was one, and that would just that more just helped us on a like we already had a romantic relationship, which was
Mhm.
great, but I think now having a professional relationship, it was
Yeah.
important for us to know how to show appreciation for the other person,
Right.
because I think that's important in any type of business relationship. And I think
Yeah.
sometimes we can miss that just because you're their, their romantic partner. It's like, okay, well, I know I'll just cook you some food, right?
Mhm.
But it's like, okay,
Yeah.
no, let's actually like how can I show him in the business, right? When he does something really well, how can I then show my appreciation? So those type of assessments are great. The other one that was really helpful for us was the DISC assessment. And so that's, really getting into the personality styles
Mhm.
of
Yeah.
like, okay, are you more the one to make the decisions, right? Are you the driver, what is it called?
Analytical.
And a little, no, not the, I was trying to, I
The
have so
pilot.
many Thank you, pilot. So like there's different analogies you can use, right? But like how do you like to support a team? Are you the one making the decisions? Are you like more in the supportive role? You want to just make sure that everybody feels supported and kind of maybe from behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Are you like the talkative one that likes to, keep everybody conversating, make sure everybody feels calm, make sure everybody's got their like the flight attendant, if you will, right? We're using the analogy that ETA uses. And then or are you like more the analytical side? Are you more like maybe not even on the plane? That's the me's of the world. The analytical sides, like who's going to what are they called? I can't think of the
air traffic
Thank
control.
you. I'm like blanking on these analogies. The air traffic control.
Partnership's all about, Queen. I got you.
Thank you.
I love
the air traffic control who's not actually on the plane, but they're the one checking to make sure like, okay, yep, you can take off. All right, we got a plane coming in, right? Because you can't just take off when you decide.
Right.
So figuring out those different personality types has helped us delegate who should do what. He's definitely more of the inspirational,
Thank you very much.
The talkative one.
I'm
sure you've gathered.
I can talk.
Look, as it comes to relational things, he's got it. He's got it on lock. Now, where he struggles, the areas for opportunities for improvement, right, is on the details. Right, he's not a detail person, whereas I am. And so that has led us to, so I'm more in the back end of like, okay, I'll cover payroll. I'm doing invoices. I'm doing, creating our financial statements, all those things, because we still need to make sure those things are taken care of.
Right.
And so we don't want to make sure we don't want those things to be overlooked. So that has really helped us delegate who's based on our strengths and based on where we naturally sit, who should do what.
And I will. That was a very, very good answer, Queen. I'm just gonna sprinkle a little something on it. I'm gonna sprinkle a little something on it. I feel like the power of being in a marriage is having someone else that you trust, right? And I think something that happens in business is, we talked about this on our last podcast, but you think that you have to do everything because it's your business, your brand. So you're doing the social media marketing, you're doing the payroll, you're buying the technology, you're editing the videos, you're doing everything. But now if you get sick, the business stops, right? Or if you want to take a vacation, the business stops. So to be able to have, two people, that already doubles the impact that our brand can have. But then now we're learning how to hire more people, right? So now we don't edit any of the podcasts. We have Jaid, Harry, who edit the podcast. We don't write any of the blogs. We have Rajel, who's writing the blogs. We partner with we have some UCLA mentors that come out to some of the schools to help teach and motivate the students. So we're learning, once we learn how to trust each other and, create those SOPs for each other and delegate stuff to each other, now it's easier to even trust other people and then just make that bigger impact. So delegation is key, y'all. It is key. Do it. Great question. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And I did want to ask also about, because I know that you all have different things that you offer in your business. And one of the things I love is that, one, you're a team, but then two, it's like the execution is good. So how do you all, one, decide when it's the right time to introduce something new? And then how do you manage like the pieces, all the multiple pieces?
That is the toughest one for us.
Really?
Well, I'll say the tough one for me. She does a great job at what's up with that finger?
It's the toughest one for us.
So yeah, I think we are extremely blessed to have multiple things going on at one time. We have a long list, like literally in our notes, it scrolls of just like business ideas, things that we want to do, investments that we want to make. And I think the Queen has definitely done a great job at being like, all right, Devon, is that something that we need to do now? Right? How does that fold into the current vision? And right now, I think we have good momentum with Play Black Wall Street and in the lane of education. So when things come up that are education based, we're diving into it. We are trying to go deep into the vertical of education. So books, board games, mentorship, apps, online things, like what can we do, any form that is in the field of education. And then once we get to a good point, we can then pivot maybe one of these things, and it's probably going to be video production and film first, Now we can pivot that out of education and into entertainment. Now let's build the entertainment model out. Okay, now that's going well. Now how can we do the entertainment and pivot that into real estate? Okay, boom. Now we can do event spaces. So to be honest with you, it's very difficult, but the queen is in charge of where we put our energies. And then once she approves the things, then I'll be like, cool. Now I go to work and I make it happen.
And that's really, again, just based on the strengths that we have,
Yes,
right?
yes,
He's the visionary. So
yes.
he has very much of a abundance mindset, which is
Mhm.
fabulous. We need that
Mhm.
mindset. However, however, I feel like where we balance each other is, I think what helped, I think, kind of bring us back down to like what is really realistic for us to handle right now is
Yes.
kind of using, I think at some point I kind of used this analogy on like, okay, on a given day, you have 100%. So whatever you choose to do that day, however many different things you choose, you are dividing that 100%
Mhm.
up into those different things. And so,
Mhm.
although it's ideal to say you have 100% to give towards everything, that's not realistic because we have a
Right.
set amount of energy in a given day. So keep in mind, like, what are the most important priorities right now, so that if we have 3 things in a day, okay, you have about 33% to give each of those things, and can we accomplish what we need to accomplish with that 33%? If not, we need to get rid of one of these things, or,
Mhm.
Right.
and figure it out. But I think, that's typically where I'm trying to come from, and I've even had to switch my approach. I feel I used to just shut things down, like, "No, no, no. No, no, no." Right? And but then I don't wanna dim that visionary light, because that's
Right,
where
right.
all of this has come from.
Mhm.
But it's more of like, is this the right time for it, or is it something we need to table? Because again, kind of to what he was saying, the approach we're kind of taking now is, let's really zoom in on the things that are already have that
Yeah.
trajectory. They have the momentum, because as we're seeing, eventually, once you get to a point where you can scale, and that's pretty much where we're at right now, is where we can
Mhm.
still run the business, operate the business without having to be the ones doing the like every
Right.
single thing,
Right.
right? So we can operate our mentorship program without him physically being in the classroom with every school.
Mhm.
And now that frees up the time to then go focus on something else if we wanted to, without losing momentum for this thing that's already going.
Right.
So that's kind of the mindset we're now taking, is like, okay, like you said, like, let's get this pillar nice and strong so that we can scale it, remove ourselves a little bit eventually, and not have the
Yeah.
business affected, so that we now have time and energy to expand on maybe this other pillar. And so, yeah, I think that mindset of like, we don't have unlimited time and energy, so we need to be very intentional about where we're putting it, I think has helped both of us
Mhm.
figure out and really prioritize what we need to be focusing on.
For sure. For
Yeah.
sure.
I think that's so good because and I'm so glad that you mentioned like that 100% because I used to be like, okay, I could do all of this in a day. I'm like,
Mhm.
I think I'm superwoman. But then I had to notice like at a certain time, my energy would start to go down. So I'm like,
Yep.
well, you notice around this time, you need to do things before this time. So, and a lot of times things weren't getting done because I was trying to do so much within a day. So I love that you said, and I think a lot of times us as entrepreneurs, we think it all has to happen right now because I have this idea right now.
Mhm.
And like you said, like when you get that more energy, that more money, resources, then you could probably introduce that. So I love that.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Thank you. Thank you. And I will say, if you're have an idea,
Mm-hmm.
I am the type of like you speed, but I think when you're juggling multiple things, then it's like, okay, you can't
Yeah,
you said this earlier, right? You can't do a million things, or you don't have to do a million things to make $1 million,
$1 million, right?
right?
Yeah,
You can be an expert in one lane and just
yeah.
execute to a high level, right? So for you, Monique, I want to ask, what do you want to be an expert in? What lane do you want to 100% take over your legacy and just be known for this?
That's a great question. And I think entrepreneurship, like Black entrepreneurship, when it comes to education, like
Mm,
the basics, like I really want to be known for if you go on Black to Business or you deal with Monique, like she's gonna explain it in a way that a fifth grader can understand. Because I think
mm,
that so many times people get intimidated to do something because they don't understand it. and it's not in a way that they can understand it. So I think that I'm very intentional. Like when people come on the Black to Business podcast, like even though I might know what you're talking about, explain it so that a fifth grader can understand. And that's what I wanted to be known for. Like when it comes to the business side of things, is when you interact with the brand, you are going to get the step by step. Like you're not going to leave confused.
Nice. Love it. Love it. I got one last question for you. All right. We got our standard question that we ask every guest. Do you think every family should have a business? No pressure.
I definitely do. I
Let's go.
definitely
We got another one, folks. We got
I
another one.
definitely do.
Tally.
We should be keeping score. We gotta
Right.
we watch the episodes and keep score. Okay, go ahead. Give them the context.
Now, so I will say this. I think that even though I do Black to Business and entrepreneurship, I think that there's the saying like everybody doesn't need to be a boss or something like that. So everybody can't be an entrepreneur. Like it takes you have to be a little insane to be an entrepreneur. Like, so I get the fact that there are those who are like, listen, I just want to get my check, go home, and I'm done. However, I at least say that you need something that's bringing in additional revenue. Like it could be a side hustle, it could be a side hobby. So that's what I think about when I think like everybody needs a business. Like in addition to your job, you need to have something else that's bringing in revenue, because that gives you that leverage, but also it's that power. Like if I'm unhappy, I can leave, or if I want to do something else, I can do it. Or if I want to make an impact in this way, I can do it because I have that extra, business that can make this impact, or I have that extra income that could do so. And with a lot of things that are going on now with companies laying off, like these are the things to think about. It can happen to anyone, and not just in people working 9 to 5, but then it's also like people who run a business. Like you need to make sure that your business can still sustain if a crisis happens. But that's the reason that I say every family should have a business. Like especially if you are 2 people in a household, like somebody got to have a business. If you're one person, you need to have a side hustle.
Yeah, even just for the tax deductions, y'all. Just go ahead, talk to your tax person. she said, talk to your tax person. Oh man, but everyone who answers that question correctly gets invited back to the podcast. So Monique, you are
correctly.
So it's no wrong. It is a wrong answer.
Well, in
his book, there is no wrong answer.
I'm just kidding. Amazing podcast listeners and potential guests. Oh man, but we appreciate you coming on our podcast. And of course, if y'all don't know, y'all should tap into the Black to Business podcast as well. Go to www.blacktobusiness.com. Tap into the waves, the frequency, the education, the melanated brilliance, and the business talk happening on over there. www.blacktobusiness.com. As we transition out, what are some announcements, things that people can be excited about for Black to Business coming up?
So we are actually planning a conference for Black men, an event for Black men in business. It will be hitting 3 cities. So that will be, of course, New York in June. And then we're also working on dates for DC and then also Atlanta. So that's geared towards Black men in business. So be on the lookout for that. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we're also launching our business formation services within the next month. So if you're looking to start a business, and as far as like an LLC, thinking about that, or a corporation, make sure you hit us up. And then we might also offer business planning help.
There's a lot of good stuff. Nothing on the West Coast. I'm just saying, if you got space on the calendar, come on over to the West Coast.
Look, if you need some partners to help you over here, find some space or whatever, let us know.
We can come to Atlanta.
I was about to say we can also come to Atlanta. We like Atlanta.
I mean, Cali is in the top 5. It ain't in the top 3, but it's the top 5. So y'all got it. I'm gonna hit y'all up.
For sure. Cool.
Yes, ma'am.
We're gonna do some quick updates and announcements, and then we're gonna go to you for the last word of wisdom or encouragement that you have for families out there who either are thinking about starting a business and they haven't done it yet, or they already have a business and they're looking to grow. Right.
Okay.
Queen, announcements for the week.
Yes. Uh, we mentioned already the pitch competition that we just had with our Leaders Innovating Tomorrow, or LIT program. And so we are finishing out one cohort and about to start another one, and also trying to recruit more schools who want to have this program at their school. So again, it is a 12-week-long mentorship program where we come into the schools and we have the students think about a problem that they want to solve, and throughout the 12 weeks help them flesh out a business that is going to solve that problem. And by the end, they're leaving and the deliverable is a business pitch that they then can compete with, but also hopefully launch, right? We this is not just an activity. We want these children these scholars to launch these businesses. So if that sounds like something that you would benefit at your school, your child's school, or any schools in your area, send us a message at info@playblackwallstreet.com so that we can reach out and hopefully make it happen. Especially if you live in Southern California, the Inland Empire area, Riverside, Corona, San Bernardino. We are trying to expand in that area. So if you got any schools in that area that think would benefit from this program, reach out and let's make it happen.
Beautiful. I'm looking forward to the next phase of LIT. I'm not gonna say it on air because I don't want people to hold us to it yet, but this next phase that I want to get into is gonna be dope.
Yes.
It is gonna be so dope. But make sure y'all also go to playblackwallstreet.com and get yourself a board game. We got the second editions of Black Wall Street, the board game, available for you. Today is, of course, Black History Year. Black History Year. Go ahead and get yourself a board game to teach you and your family the legacy of Tulsa's Black Wall Street. Having fun, increase financial literacy, and learn the 3 business structures: sole proprietor, LLC, corporation. Playblackwallstreet.com. Go ahead and get yourself a game. All right. Last but not least, words of wisdom. Monique, please end us beautifully. No pressure. My bad. Let me just stop. Any words that you have for the beautiful people?
Yes, I would say get clear on your why. Why are you doing it? Because when it gets tough, that's going to be that reminder that keeps you going. And I heard someone on the podcast once saying, it always stuck with me, is that you wonder why you keep failing. And that's because you keep quitting. So keep pushing through. Like, even when it gets tough, keep pushing through. Because, and then another thing I think about is, why would I quit today when tomorrow might be the day that I win? So really keep pushing. And I think that the biggest reason that you'll keep pushing is remembering why you're doing something.
Wow. Perfect way to end us. Make sure y'all secure the marriage. Make sure y'all secure the love. And of course, make sure y'all secure the bag. Peace. Thank you for supporting the M4 show and our mission to increase the wealth of Black families.
If you received any value from this episode, any value at all, any, do us a favor and give us a like and subscribe on YouTube and Apple, Spotify, anything, all of them, all of them, wherever you're listening. Go ahead and like and subscribe.
And after you like and subscribe, make sure you send this episode to at least one family that you really want to see win. We'll catch y'all next time. Peace.